So you've completed transition in all the ways you intended to, perhaps socially, perhaps medically, perhaps surgically. Now what? I mean, we did all self-advocating, tricky conversations. Where do we go from here? Well, that's what this video is about. We're going to go over all the things in relation to the question, now what? And, completing transition, no small task. So I brought $5 to celebrate. I'll send you a sausage sanger through the mail. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. You'll find out. Here you go. Yeah, okay. So we're going to learn all there is to know about what we do once transition is finished. Because realistically, when you do transition, all your life kind of revolves around it. It's very common. I mean, voice training takes a lot of time. Doctor appointments take forever. Coming out to friends takes eons. It's just consuming. There's nothing wrong with that. But now that you've done that, you got to start living, I think the most important thing is to remember that just because we're trans and we had a difficult time getting to this point that we're at now, you don't have to continue being a tragedy to people. You don't have to keep telling the hard points. You don't have to focus on the negatives. Negatives are still there, and that's fine, but you don't need to focus on them as the sole crux of your identity. You're more than that. It was just a part of you. All the journey that led you to who you are and how it formed you, that's a part of you. But there's a lot more to you. I know it. And maybe you don't know who that person is yet. I mean, maybe you didn't give yourself space to find out what kind of trans person you are. I mean, trans, it's an adjective. The gender that goes after it, well, that's just, you. Adjectives aren't all-encompassing. For example, this skirt. Sure, you could describe it as a black skirt, but there's many other ways you could describe this skirt. There's all sorts of adjectives that form everything that skirt is. That applies to you too. Perhaps you're kind, funny, interesting, informative, more, smart, amazing, all sorts of things. So that leads to my first point. Your passions, your interests, your hobbies. Now, I'm not kidding. You need hobbies, okay? If we're going to keep going through this world, being our authentic selves, well, people do things. And you got to find out what you like to do. And by the way, this doesn't mean you have to do something extravagant and change the world. No, I just mean whatever you find interesting. And that could be so many things. Countless things, in fact. For me personally, I really like dancing, music, video games, ice skating, and language study. Those are some passions of mine. And as you might guess, none of those rely on the fact that I am transgender. Now, our trans identity can influence how we engage in those hobbies in a way. I mean, I know if I ever got to write music one day, I'd want that music to reflect my experience. So in that way, the transness would intersect with my interests. I remember seeing an ice skating performance someone did where they wore a trans flag and spun around and looked all cool on the ice. That's ways that our transness can be involved with our interests, but it's not everything, right? Our interests are independent to our gender, but we can also be proud of our gender and show pride for our hobbies. That can manifest in all sorts of ways. You don't have to do stereotype hobbies, and you can also do stereotype hobbies if you'd like to. Honestly, it's up to you. You just gotta do what feels right for you, right? I mean, there's so many things to do in the world, right? And chances are you haven't given yourself the time to find what you like. And it's okay if maybe you don't know what that is. That's fine. That's perfectly fine, in fact. It's hard to know these things. Truly. It's really, really hard to know. But there's all sorts of ways we can do our best. And this is how I'm going to segue into healthy lifestyle. So here's the thing, right? We spend a lot of time focusing on health in a trans sense, right? Well, now's a good time to get any checkups or anything on your general health, which I know is intimidating and scary. For example, I ended up getting hearing problems despite being quite young. And I don't think I would have been able to sort that out while undergoing transition. It'd be a lot at once. So I saw an audiologist and I got my fancy diagnosis. All sorts of hearing problems, unfortunately. But hey, I got to deal with them in a headspace where I felt like I could handle it, you know? Hearing problems be damned, I'll do what I want, you know? I'll keep living and I'll conquer those things one step at a time, you know? And it's a good time to get general checkups. It's good to do nice things to yourself, like getting massages and feeling nice about your body. Or you could start working out, for example, if you don't already. Gyms are pretty chill places. You could do dancing. I love dancing. I'm biased. There's all sorts of physical activities you can do. You can do practically anything that involves moving. Just do what feels right for you. You can just do whatever. You're free to do that now. You don't have to let gender step in your way of anything you've always wanted to do. Which is going to segue into childhood reclamation. Is that a word? Well, it is now. So, what is childhood reclamation? So, chances are, if you're trans, like me, there's a lot of life experiences you probably didn't get to have. This can be a lot of things. Perhaps going to a school formal or prom for Americans. That could be doing a gender affirming activity as a kid, like trans girl wanting to have gone to ballet class, for example. There's all sorts of things like that. However, whatever age you are, perhaps you're younger than me, perhaps you're older than me, or maybe you're the same age as me. Doesn't matter, okay? If there's things that you didn't get to do as a little kid, you can do it now. Was there a girly toy you wanted to buy that your parents didn't let you? Or maybe a boyish toy? Just buy it. I know it seems silly. Just indulge yourself for a bit. It's fine. Maybe you missed out on a couple of movies due to gender stereotypes. Go binge them. It's probably cheaper to watch those movies now than it would have been when we were kids. This can manifest in many ways. I watched a lot of Barbie movies way after the fact, and I found that a fun childhood reclamation. I do really hope that's a word. There can be video games you missed out on, maybe. I really wanted to play the Style Boutique games when I was really little. I have an entire video about that I got the game later on from eBay for $3 or $5, I don't quite remember. That it was an amazing experience and it made me really happy, and I felt like I reclaimed that time period of fashion that I didn't get to dress up in, which is kind of why I dress up like a 2010s Pinterest girl. But what are you gonna do? That's another thing. Like a fashion star from an era that was long before, just dress like that. If you like fashion from the 90s, the 80s, the early 2000s, perhaps further back, perhaps further forward, it's fine. Just wear it. Nostalgic for a certain hairstyle or a style or just clothes, just do it. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter how much it sticks out. When you're this far in transition, there's some things you can just do. You can just do it. You can just give it a try, go for it, and have a good time. That's all there is to it, you know. And I think that really leads into a really important point that, you know, I've been really excited to share it. I mean, I think this is probably the most important part.
One of the things I always find with transitioning is that it feels like an all-encompassing project. You get really engrossed in it with your voice training, with learning how to do makeup, with your clothing choices and everything. For a long time, especially when you're really going through those formative stages of transitioning, it really feels like Transitioning is everything. It's completely who you are. And so it's understandable that when you get to the end of it and you're happy with where you are, you can kind of feel a little bit lost. Like, what am I doing? What next? That's why I wanted to say being trans isn't all you are. So maybe now that you've finished your transition, it's time to relearn what it's like to just be a normal person and have normal priorities and go about doing your daily life. You know, you've got a job, maybe you want to search for a relationship, or maybe you've got a hobby, or you want to travel, or whatever. Try and get to a point where you can say, I'm trans, but that's really not who I am. She says she's from Australia, but like, Australia's not real. We all know that, right? Later.
That's weird. Could have sworn I heard a New Zealand accent. Probably my imagination. What are you gonna do? Alright, what was I? Yeah, look, there's a very important discussion point to mention within the context of our post-transition journey. You've likely pondered it. The big question. To stealth or not to stealth? That is the question. And to be real with you, you don't have to decide if you don't want to. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out. There's kind of a spectrum of how stealth or unstealth you are, to be honest. And being stealth is taxing, to be completely transparent. Look, the thing is, when you are stealth, there's some things you can't really say to other people because they'll blow your cover, essentially. So remember, when talking to other people about experiences that may compromise that secrecy, remember to tell smart lies. Embellish the truth a little bit, just to make it a little sneaky. But don't feel the need to lie about who you are as a person, right? You can tell cis people different things about your own gender experience or not. That's not lying about who you are. That's protecting yourself. If you want to do that, it's about living a life that you want to live. However, who you are on the inside, try not to lie about that. I tried being stealth at university this one time, long ago, and I'll be real, it didn't really pan out how I expected. I thought that if I acted like a basic girly girl and leaned into the image, that'd be okay, but that meant I stopped referencing the fact I like games. I stopped referencing the fact I played electric guitar. Silly stuff like that. I only emphasized hobbies that made me seem normal. You know what happened that semester? I didn't make any friends. But the semester after that, I decided to go screw it and be more open about who I am. But I didn't disclose being trans that much, if at all. When I did that, I was making more connections. In my opinion, at least. I think the best way to go about stealth is you're concealing your transness, not your heart. So remember to let yourself be yourself. And that means more than just your gender identity. Or maybe you don't want to be stealth. You don't have to be. I gave up on being stealth, obviously. But that's not me criticizing the idea. I really respect the people that can do it. I mean, at least for me, whenever the topic of transness comes up, I can't help wanting to talk about my experience and hope I can make someone understand it better so someone else doesn't have to deal with someone's ignorance. However, you're not responsible for being an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community. You're just a person, okay? If you want to help the LGBT community, that's fine. If you want to be open and proud to yourself to show a great image of how trans people are, that's cool too. But never do it out of obligation. Never be effectively a personification of protest just because you're expected to be. If you don't want that, you don't have to be that. You can be an advocate for the community in subtle ways. However, don't let anyone push you to do something you don't want to do. I got a bit nudged into something I didn't want to do, and it led to some pretty negative results. That's all I'll say. But point is, how stealth you are is up to you, and also how much of an advocate for the trans community you are is also up to you. Like, you can be stealth and donate to 1 million trans charities, or you may out and proud yourself but not necessarily a protester. You know, everyone has different levels of comfort, and you got to do what's right for you. Me, for example, I don't really have the ability to go to protests because I have hearing problems. So that's a no-go, unfortunately. As much as I really want to help that way. These really chill videos is kind of my way to be able to help people, if that makes sense. And I know it's not the same impact as protests, but I am proud of it. And whatever you do, I hope you're proud of it. It can be all sorts of things. You feel me? Yeah. So, I hope you enjoyed this little video. And if it's Pride Month when you're watching this, happy Pride Month. If it's any other time of the year, happy every other time of the month. If it's no holidays, happy holidays, etc., etc., etc. You know, I want everyone to feel comfortable with who they are. And I mean that in a genuine way and not a kind of performative way some people would do it, which I'm a bit critical of. And before I close out, I do want to thank AliceinWonder1and for helping out with this video in particular. It was pretty cool to do a collab, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. Don't know where she is though. Yeah, she said she was going to be here for the video, but yeah, I don't know. I'm sure she'll be here soon. But I hope you enjoyed this video. And remember, there's nothing wrong with who you are. You're wonderful, you're kind, you're strong, sweet, and wonderful. Okay? I'm proud of you. A lot of people are proud of you, even if you aren't interacting with the people that are. And I mean this very genuinely. I'm sure transition was really tough. Scary, even. Perhaps one of the most difficult decisions you've ever made. Perhaps the most difficult battle you've ever faced. However, I always tell baby trans people that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And you're nearly there. You know? It won't be easy. But you know that. I think you got this. And who knows? I'm sure you're going to discover things about yourself you didn't know. And that's pretty wonderful, I think. Thank you for watching. Stay hydrated and know that you are valid.